Good evening. I hope you all are having a good week. A very warm welcome to all the people attending this webinar today on how to start your career in data science. Well, considering the need to embrace digital transformation through data is at all-time high, organizations across sectors have immense interest in making sense out of data and improve their business outcomes. This has led to data science becoming one of the most coveted job titles in the IT industry. As a matter of fact, despite pandemic, this domain has picked up tremendously. However, it doesn't it doesn't seem, that easy, especially for starters, as it requires a certain level of understanding, aptitude, and attitude to be successful in this domain. Currently, the internet is filled with information to be data scientist. Unfortunately, most of the information is too generic to be of any practical use in the current scenario. So if any of us is seriously considering to moving into this domain, this data science domain, we should definitely turn towards the experts for their guidance. And that's why we have Professor Charanpreet Singh, who is the founder director at Praxis Business School Foundation, and Mr. Kaushik Sarkar, the head of corporate relations at Praxis Business School, with us today to guide us on various aspects like qualities, skills, aptitude, etc., that an aspiring data science professional should possess at this current era. And they will also share about how Praxis Business School has been successfully placing over 1,000 students from its highly acclaimed postgrad data science program. This session will be extremely exciting, where Professor Singh and Kaushik will be answering some key questions regarding this industry and Praxis Data Science program. We will also take up a few questions at the end of the session, so please drop in your questions on the Q&A tab. Also, without any further delay, let's welcome Professor Singh and Mr. Kaushik and start this session. Hi, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Sajati. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, before I delve into the questions, I would really like to congratulate Praxis for the 10 years of data science. You guys have become like a legend. So with regards to that, I would go ahead and ask my first questions to Professor Singh. As a pioneer in data science education, I would specifically like to understand from you how data science has evolved over the years and what has been Praxis' key journey during this period.
Yeah, thanks, Shajuti, and good evening to everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so thanks for acknowledging our 10 years in data science. It's been a wonderful journey, and uh, we started in 2011, and we called this program Business Analytics. It was a full-time program, and we garnered 8 students because it was a domain that very few people knew about, so we literally had to convince people and show them the way, and from there till to 2021 we now have uh, campuses at Kolkata and Bangalore. We have January and July intakes, and obviously many more students, and much more excitement, right? So it's a great journey, and then in the middle of that journey we renamed the program. We called it data science instead of business analytics. For the last 5 years or so we've been ranked among the top 2 or 3 uh, analytics and data science programs in the country. uh, so that's been our journey, and along, so we've you know kind of been going parallel with the data science journey as well, because we started so early. And right now, if you look at the education domain, I call data science the darling of edtech. Every edtech company, they're offering data science programs. All the big brands, the IITs, the IIMs, the triple ITs, they're all offering good data science programs. And so for us, with so much happening around us, we're still holding on and growing. It's a matter of pride and holding on to also our position. But I think this area is going to be very exciting. A lot of consolidation is going to happen. So that's been our journey. On the side of the evolution of data science, I would like to look at. I'm going to keep my answers short because I want to field more questions if they come. So I'm going to look at the evolution from 2 points of view. One is from a content point of view, technology or skills point of view. The other is from the adoption point of view. So from a technology point of view, it has 10 years have seen a sea change, technology and content, right? So we started with statistics and SAS, and we moved to machine learning and AI, and we moved from SAS to R to Python, and we got in data visualization, and we got into machine learning, deep learning. A lot of AI came into this, and then computer vision and NLP and all. So right now the way data science is going, what it can do for society, I think, is limited only by our imagination. So at this point in time, I shared one slide with you just to give audiences a view of what was happening 10 years back and what is happening now. I'd like you to share that slide, and very quickly I think it'll become yeah. So if you could just zoom in a little. Right, so if you go to the left, so this is our first program. I dug it out. I had my PGP office dig it out. So 450 hours. So if you look at statistics, communication, data warehousing, reporting analysis, economics, SAS, advanced statistics, cost, because a lot of our recruitment used to happen in BFSI. So we used to teach finance management, and then if you go down a little, term 3, domain analytics, which was basically finance and marketing and all, project management and supply chain management. So it was like a very, it sounds like a very doable program. It's very soft. It combines stats with a little bit of domain. And now let's look at what we do now. And if you go to the right and blow it up. So, we're looking at data visualization, storytelling, security and privacy, machine learning, mathematics for machine learning. Python has come in. SAS is now just a workshop. And then if we go down, we have advanced machine learning, and we have big data and IoT with NoSQL and Spark, financial modeling, and then multivariate statistics and econometrics, text analytics, and then moving below that, deep learning, data engineering has become a little bit of that is included in data science now, because that's becoming very important, and applied AI and model interpretation. So if you look at between what has happened between 2011 and 2021, other than statistics and a little bit of domain, they don't look like the same program at all, right? So it's become more challenging on one side and complex, and it has become much more exciting if you want to look at it in a positive way, right? So this is from a technology point of view. And from an adoption point of view, I think that data science has now become mainstream. It's no longer something that you have to go and explain to people, and I think everybody wants a piece of data science right now. Organizations want to drive data science, everybody wants to use data, and people want to join this domain as data scientists. So there is excitement both from a demand side and also from the supply side. So we don't have to talk to people and tell them what this is and why it's important. I think that's a big change.
Correct. Very, very rightly pointed out. Definitely, Praxis journey has been exciting, and plus the way you have showcased the past and the present curriculum and the type of courses that has been added. Indeed, it has been, I won't call it complex, but a very, very heavy course, which was not there the earlier. Correct. So, as I mentioned, during COVID, many aspects of our lives, in fact, all the aspects of our lives has been affected. What has been the critical impact of COVID in the data science domain, and how do you foresee data science post-pandemic if it comes?
Yeah, if there is something called post-pandemic. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, so yeah, true. COVID kind of changed the way we lived, right? From consumption to transactions to how we consumed, how we ordered food, how we consumed entertainment, and how we worked, like remote. So I think, and some of these changes are temporary, and some of these changes are going to stay for long. I think some were habit-changing changes, right? So if you look at the theme, I think the theme has been remote and contact free, right? That's what, because that was a pandemic, it was highly infectious. So, whenever you go remote and contact free, you basically go digital. Yeah, and if you go digital, then you start, leaving a digital footprint, which is what the data is. So if I start ordering food online, I do a lot of search. Everything that I go and do when I'm searching, when I'm ordering, when I'm even how much I tip, shows this is a part of my behavior, which is useful to some marketeers, right? How many times do I refuse an order? How many times do I? Yeah, so all of that. So everything. So a lot of things that were done physically kind of transited to digital. In fact, Satya Nadella said that years of digitalization were compressed into months. So the digital process was accelerated tremendously. And because of that, the amount of data that we generated and the kind of data we generated and what can be done with the data that we have generated is what makes data science become very central. So there's a huge acceleration in adoption of digital and hence data science, right? And there was other thing which was very interesting. Consumer behavior changed suddenly and drastically. Right. So what data we had on consumer behavior before COVID was not very useful to predict how consumers are going to behave during the COVID period. So data scientists had to literally go back to different things to try and make sense of this and try and very quickly and with agility, respond to this and try and make sense of it and still try and get good insights to move forward. So very interesting in some sense. Of course, the pandemic itself was not something that we wanted or desired, but I think that the digitization that has happened is here to stay. It's not going to go away. And for data science, both in terms of adoption and in terms of career opportunities, it's a huge boost. And I think when you talk to Kaushik about who are recruiting and what is happening to recruitment, we were at one time pretty uncertain as to how recruitment would happen because we had transited our batches online and we were teaching. But actually, it opened up far more opportunities than before. And I think that data and what we can do with data is going to only grow. So I've read some statistics till 2029. I think it is sinful to predict anything beyond that because the way the world is moving, we don't know. And the data science graph is like really steep and moving upwards.
Correct. So two key points that I picked up from your conversation is one is that the consumer behavior has changed so drastically that the previous data is almost like they have to unlearn and then relearn a lot of things to do the things for the current era. And also that agility part makes a lot of difference as to how you quickly pick that up for the current era and then move it with business implication. This actually brings me to my next question. With you having that ringside view of the evolution of this data science field, how do you foresee the future data scientists and how they are actually different from the past or the current data scientists?
Yeah, so interestingly, the past data scientists have now become current and they will be the future data scientists anyway, right? Because the data scientist career is long. So I think fundamentally, some things will not change. Fundamentally, you would still require the ability to combine your knowledge of math, stats, technology, to make sense of data and to use it for business and also government and societal good. I mean, it's not just me to talk about business, but data science is becoming so important for health. One of the changes from COVID is that, health, agriculture. So we are doing societal good, not just, business good, right? So that does not change. Okay, what will change? What is changing with post COVID is, I think there is going to be, as I said, more adoption of AI. AI brings in its own automation, but AI also, because of more automation, the regulatory framework becomes more important because the moment there is automation, there's more regulation and all of that. The domain becomes very important. Am I doing data science in a retail environment or a BFSI or energy or health? And I think also the ethics of AI, because when you use AI, there's a lot of talk around ethics and explainable AI and stuff like that. So I think in future, all data scientists will continue to have their command over the data and the tech. But on top of that, they will have to build domain expertise. Right? They will have to understand regulatory frameworks when they're, when you're making a driverless car, what happens if a car has an accident? Who's to blame? Who pays whom insurance? All of that. And then also the ethics of AI. If I'm modeling on data, is my data unbiased or not? Can I explain this model? Because if I want universal adoption, governments especially will need to know how the model works, because you can't take a chance on these things. Suppose so I think it is evolving at a level where it's going to become even more fascinating and challenging.
Correct.
Okay. And I think the requirement will be for people to get into it with more passion and more, I think, critical thinking about the whole thing, and not just about technology and data. I mean, that's the way I think it's going to move forward.
Correct. Like you mentioned, this regulatory framework, ethics, 2020 has been, ethics has been in the news in the entire 2020. So that definitely would be a very critical part for all the data scientists to keep in mind and be successful in this domain. Otherwise, there's always a chance to fall, on your face first. But let's take up. I mean, we understand the evolution and how the data science domain is, currently being. I would like to go to Kaushik at this point of time and want to understand the market of this domain. So Kaushik, are you there?
Yeah, hi Sajati. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
So
So yeah, sorry, please.
no, I just wanted to actually mention this to our audience that Kaushik, you are the man and the frontline man of the data science recruitment market, uh, with associated with Praxis for so long. So I wanted to critically understand from you, how do you see the market evolving, where it is currently heading, how do you foresee the future?
Right. So thanks, Sajati, and hi, everyone. I have now been associated with Praxis for a little over 6 years. And when I had started back in 2015-16, when I joined Praxis, we kind of used to have about 20, 22 hiring partners in a year. This number has now grown remarkably. For the placement season 2021, we had over 90 organizations that kind of participated for campus recruitments. Back in 15-16, the JDs that we received were somewhat similar in nature and structure, and from companies in a specific sector. So there was consulting, BFSI, and ITES. In the last couple of years, we've kind of seen a lot of these traditional sectors like manufacturing, FMCG, and everybody. So they're all setting up teams in data science and analytics. Most of our campus recruitments was in BFSI a couple of years back. That has changed rapidly. While they still are one of the largest recruiting sectors, consulting organizations, analytics specialists, retail, CPG are now doing most of the heavy lifting at the campus. Uh, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of these traditional companies understanding the need to have an in-house data science and analytics team. This in turn has also fueled our alumni recruitments. We've been around for 10 years now, so the companies kind of know that there would be senior resources available from the alumni pool. And the number of sheer number of people that have graduated from Praxis. So we kind of almost every week we get a couple of these organizations who kind of send us requests for alumni referrals and JDs for the alumni. Uh, Organizations now also have realized the advantages that analytics plays and how it can help them. Hence, there is a huge scramble for all of them to find and recruit the right talent at across all levels. This actually has kind of opened up the market drastically for people with the right kind of skills.
Correct. Correct, Kaushik. That actually gives us an amazing view of the market and how and where it is currently heading. Coming back to Professor Singh, we'll come to you, Kaushik, with more and more of these recruitment and placement questions. Professor Singh, so far Praxis has placed almost, or I think more than 25 batches of data science. So you would be the right person to tell us or tell the attendees, how can a data science aspirant or a young data scientist watching this webinar want to get into this domain can start a career?
Yeah, I think over across these 10 years, one thing I have realized is that you don't need to be a computer science graduate to get into data science, right? So that's a question people ask all the time. So we've had a massive diversity of people, engineering from all fields, BScs, then economics, and CAs, and people with sales experience after their, let's say, engineering, and all kinds of people, right? And also, really top institutes like IITs and BITS and NIT and IIMs, right up to different kinds of colleges, because there's a very democratic field and everybody can kind of get a piece of it. So that's one. The second thing is, before you want to get into a data science career, I think one thing you need to ask yourself is, are you chasing the glamour and the money, or are you chasing a profession where you are likely to enjoy working and you're likely to do well? Right. So I think the first thing is the candidate has to kind of figure out what is data science, talk to people now. See, 10 years back, there were no people who were working in data science, almost none. So there were no points of reference. Today, everybody's friend, uncle, brother, sister, cousin, somebody is working. So find out from them what is the kind of job they do, right? Maybe download stuff, do a little bit of tinkering with what is, and first try to figure out that, is this something I want to do? Because there's no point transitioning into a career where you're not enjoying what you're doing, right? So that's one. Once you realize that, yes, this is what I want to do, and if you're serious and ambitious, I always use these two things, serious and ambitious about a career in data science, you need to train yourself. It's too complex a domain where you can say that I can you can train yourself by yourself, or you can train yourself through people like us or others who are offering programs. But you need to formally can be by yourself also, set aside time and actually learn, because you need to understand. There are a lot of it's a combination of a lot of things. So that's the second thing, train yourself. Yes. And the third thing is, while you are training yourself, try and get some, participate in hackathons, get into Kaggle, which is a club kind of a situation where you have all these people who are, it's a community. Even India's, Analytics India magazine is a great community. Become a member and see what this all is, and maybe try and do something there. And then, of course, once you got yourself trained, when you got a bit of hands-on by yourself, and then you are pretty much ready for this. So if you find it interesting, you would really enjoy the journey. And once you get into a job, that learning continues, because things keep changing. So there is no end line, there is no finish line. So you keep growing as a data scientist, you keep learning. But to start, I think you need two things. You need to understand, you need to figure out whether you want to do this. Are you the right person for the right domain? And secondly, get trained for it.
Correct. A very nice point you mentioned, that people should not come to data science because of the hype that has been created, or the fame that it comes with, fame and money that it comes with. But of course, a person would not survive, a professional would not survive if they do not have the interest in it. And the second thing that comes is the training, which is very, very critical. You need to understand what exactly your key job role would be after you get yourself ready. So connecting to this, what are the top 5 things a data scientist, according to you, needs to be good at? Like, if you have to list down.
This is a tough question, right? Because so let me break this up into two parts. I'll break this up into soft skills and hard skills, because I think everybody is aware of the hard skills, right? We don't give enough importance to the soft skills, and I think they're pretty much at least as important. And you could have them without being a math rock star. right? Yeah. Okay. So one of the soft skills is curiosity. A curiosity in terms of attitude and problem solving, kind of a, do you like to? Are you curious about things? Why does something? Why does what happen? Something that happens. Why does it happen? Are you curious when you look at a graph? That what does it say and does it make sense? Okay. So curiosity about, because that's what a data scientist does. Keeps asking questions. Before you improve a business, you need to understand the business. And you say, okay, so you can ask some really basic questions because you are curious. Why do you do a process like this? Or why does this data look like this? Right? So that's one. The second is critical thinking. Are you able to have good reasons to believe what you believe? Are you a skeptic? Do you trust data easily, or do you say, let me try to find out whether this data is the right, whether it's been analyzed properly, whether the right technique has been, why should I believe the results that I get? That's very important for a data scientist. And third is communication, because a data scientist kind of, it works with a lot of interfaces with a lot of people,
Yes.
lot of agencies. So you have to understand from the client, and then you have to deliver to the client. You have to tell the story. So these are your soft skills. The hard skills, very simple. You need to be good with data. You need to love data. In fact, our first ad that we had brought out in 2011 is that your love of data can give you a great career. So if you love data, you have a great career. And it does not mean that as I said, you have to be a math rock star, but you should like data. People will train you on what you need to do. You need to know in stats and math. You need to be good with technology. If you don't know coding or you don't know Python, it's fine. But do you run away from? Did you dislike and hate it? Did you hate coding and you don't want to look at a computer screen? Then it maybe is not the right thing for you. But you have to be good at technology. You have to be good with data. You have to be good with technology, and you have to be good with understanding business. So I've given you 6 instead of 5.
Yeah.
So just one, one bonus kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, I mean, like you said, that the hard skills or the hard things, they're easily known to a lot of people. But these soft skills are the ones that actually are missed out, and curiosity, communication are like the key for, because you have to survive in this industry.
Yes.
So, correct. So, coming to the Praxis data science program,
Yeah.
I would currently there are plethora of online and hybrid courses available in the country. Like you mentioned at the start, like every university, in fact, all companies are giving their mini courses. So you just have to Google and you can just find some of the other course. Probably Praxis will be the first one, but there are so many other courses are available. How, like, while Praxis has been running its full-time class program, like, considering this online and hybrid has been so much hype, you guys are still running in-class program. How these two are different? Firstly, I would also like to understand how an aspirant can make a choice, and if once that's done, I would like to understand how your data science program has been structured for an aspirant or for a working professional. Yes.
I think it's a really good question, because I think that what who you are, where are you in your career, and what are you trying to achieve out of this learning will decide what is a good choice for you. So online courses obviously are very popular, and that's why so many people are enrolling, because it suits their needs, right? So now if you are working in a company and you're doing well, and you know that you can get into a data science profile or role within your company, you just need to enhance your skill set a little. That's a great time where you don't need to leave your job, and you can you can do an online program. If you want to test the waters, whether I'm going to be good at it, am I going to like it, that's another reason for doing an online program. If for some reason you just cannot leave your job, it could be a financial reason, it could be some other personal reason. It's then the only choice you have is an online part-time program, and if you can, that's great. Okay, and there are a lot of good programs available. So one of the reasons when you asked me, why are you not getting into it, I think the competition is very severe there as well. So one needs to be very clear, how you want to enter that market. We would like to at some point in time, but what a full-time program brings to you is that if you are serious and ambitious, and I'm going to use these two words again, serious and ambitious about a career in data science, and if you have the option to devote full time to it, and that option, even if it's not an easy option, even if it's a little difficult option, but you can do it, I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'll tell you very quickly 2-3 things, right? So one is that a full-time program, when it's offered in class, it's very structured. That, so you don't need self-discipline. You will be pushed. You will be forced to attend class, and you will be forced to do it, because when you're doing a job and on top of that doing a part-time online program, sometimes the job will typically take precedence, over this, and you can say that, okay, I'll do that assignment tomorrow, or today I'm feeling tired, and there is nobody to kind of haul you up on that. But here you don't have that option, and very few people, at least I'm not that self-motivated. I don't know about others. I need somebody to constantly nudge me. So that is one. It's structured. It has a flow, and there is a rigor and a thing. Secondly, you learn from faculty, and you have access to that faculty post class. You learn from peers with a diverse group of people. You do projects with them. So that is like real value for learning. I think the third thing is that you have access to a very engaged alumni network, because when you have you have batches, and then they are not remote batches. People have experience. So our alumni actually come down to campus to do mock interviews because they want to come back to our campus. So that network becomes very 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 strong. And fourthly, which is one of the thing, if, as I said, if you're serious about your career and you want to get into it, full-time programs typically have campus placements attached to them, right? Full-time in-class programs, right? So now what happens is a lot of people are doing a lot of courses and applying. So your application is one of the 1,000 applications the company gets. But when you're in a full-time in-class program, the company comes to your campus. So there you are competing with 50, 60, 100 people, right? And the company is going to pick up 5. So and they know what they are looking for. They know what people are taught. They have already picked up people from the same program. So there is a very clear advantage in getting your first job and your first break. So there is mentoring, there is peer learning, there is structured rigor, and collaborative working, alumni, as well as the placement thing. So I think together. So again, I would say, if this is what you're looking for, I think this is a great idea. If for some reason this is not possible for you, then I think there are really good online options. So that was part of the whole thing. So Praxis program, very quickly again, is structured in we have 3 trimesters of 3 months each. So it's a 9-month program, and we had ambitions of starting a 2-year program, and we realized people don't have that much time, and maybe they want to get back quickly, and then we pushed it into a 3, and then we teach the tools, which are your Python, R, Tableau, all these programming tools. We teach techniques, which is stats and machine learning and deep learning and applied AI and DevOps and all of that. And we teach business applications, marketing analytics, financial analytics, health analytics, agricultural analytics. We think there's a great potential for that, web analytics and all of that. Okay, so on one side, the tools and the technology with big data, Hadoop, and all of that, TensorFlow, the deep learning and whatever comes with it. The second is techniques. What do you actually do with these tools and technology, which is the stats, machine learning, deep learning, and all? And finally, how do you apply? So this is, and the pedagogy is, very use case basis, projects, assignments, labs, where you actually, you learn by doing, and you can't have lectures in this, right? Too many, right? So that's in a nutshell how we deliver this program at Praxis.
Very rightly said, and I personally truly believe that there is no, competition for an in-class program with online or any sort of hybrid programs, because that in-person things makes a lot of difference in terms of understanding, especially for a domain like this. Like you mentioned, you have labs, you have hands-on, your workshops. I think these all things are really lacking in that online space. Like, it's a very one-sided conversation, I would rather say. So let's bring in Kaushik here. I would really like to understand a little bit more about the Praxis placement story. Hi Kaushik, once again. So hi. So please tell us the Praxis placement story, and also what do recruiters actually look for in a Praxis candidate, and what kind of profiles your students usually get in terms of placement.
Okay, so if you look at a typical batch of Praxis, it would kind of have about 80% of them would be engineers. Most of the rest would come with a, graduation degree in eco, stat, or math. About 30% of the batch also come with a postgraduate degree. So you've got guys from the IIMs who have done an MTech from IIT, GIM, and all of that. The average experience that they come with is about 3.5 years and would have worked in sectors like IT, retail, FMCG, manufacturing, healthcare. So there's a huge chance that there would at least be a couple of profiles in the batch who would have worked in the same industry when a recruiting organization comes. What it also does is it also helps the other batchmates because these guys would have worked in an industry, and once when an organization is coming from to hire from the same industry, they would kind of give a lot of inputs about that. Uh, the JDs have become very focused. They kind of underline critical skills for working professionals and for students. The skills that we now commonly see in all of the JDs are critical thinking, problem solving ability, your math and stat skills, and business understanding. Uh, Thankfully, we kind of realized this a long time ago, and we've been doing this. We've been teaching all of this for a long time. Hence, what has happened is Praxis has been able to kind of attract better profiles and compensations as compared to other institutions. Right. So, at a granular level, the companies would look for knowledge in specific techniques and tools uh, that form a part of their data science environment as a whole, and finally, the ability to tell a story. So, the when a Praxite kind of you look at the campus placements, the profiles and all of this would be very different from what you would get at other programs.
Correct. Very nicely described, Kaushik. Kaushik, so you have mentioned that 90 organizations have, approximately 90 organizations usually come to, do the placement last year. How does Praxis actually prepare their students for these sort of placement processes?
Okay, so so what happens is if you talk about a recruitment process in an organization, there are a couple of rounds that happen before the student is offered a job. The first is probably the preliminary round, or most like an aptitude test, where students are kind of there would be questions will generally be on HackerRank or Metal and all of that, and would have questions on quantitative analysis, logical reasoning, verbal, and data interpretation. Uh, it's then followed by either a coding assignment, or students would have to do a live coding at times, and then a technical round with domain oriented questions, and finally an HR round which kind of uh, has behavioral questions are asked if uh, the students would be a good fit culturally. Right, so Praxis kind of has a very well structured prep program. It starts right after their orientation, once when they join the batch. They kind of are made to undergo several aptitude tests. The alumni here kind of plays a huge role in preparing the students. What they do is they take responsibility of a couple of students before the start of much before the start of placements, and they actually kind of end up becoming mentors for these guys, right? So what they do is they kind of help them make their CVs, uh, write how should they portray their projects, do mock interviews, and all of that, right? Since we kind of have two intakes in a year, a January and a July, so there are a couple of months in between when there is an overlap between them. Uh, Here, what happens is the student run placement committee, which we call PlaceCom, they kind of get involved. So right at the start, during orientation, the PlaceCom makes a presentation to the incoming students on how to prepare for the processes. They would give them uh, uh, all of these databases and links where they can do aptitude tests. What should you do in your Python? What kind of project should you do? So it's generally about a 2 hour presentation that happens there. The students are also kind of taken through the recruitment processes of the companies that had hired from their batch. So this helps students understand and sets their expectation of what is going to happen in their placement, which starts about 4.5 months after they've joined the program. What we also do is we kind of encourage the students to do a lot of projects on their own, because this is something that we've seen that the companies have asked, how many projects have you done on your own? Have you taken up responsibility? So these students have now kind of do a lot of projects on Kaggle and on hackathons, and we're proud to say that Praxis teams have been really doing well at various national and international hackathons. Uh, uh, as we keep kind of discovering and adding more companies to our panel of recruiters, Praxis is privileged to kind of have a high degree of repeat purchase. So that's a high percentage of our recruiters come back batch after batch. So we still have a couple of companies that kind of had started recruitments right from the first batch, which graduated in 2012. They still have been recruiting from us. This probably is the best endorsement to the quality of the program and for our students.
Definitely. So I understand that there's a lot that goes behind this entire placement processes by the alumni, by the professors. There are a lot of mock interviews, project discussions, and stuff. So far, as I've mentioned before to the attendees as well, that you guys have placed 1,000 or 1,000 plus students so far from your PGP program in data science. What do you think has been the secret sauce for your placement story? And let's talk a little bit also about the alumni. How do you think they're connected, and how have their careers grown so far?
Okay, so placements are kind of a fallout of doing things correctly, both from the institute and the student doing their part. So uh, our secret sauce is both, uh, if I would have to kind of put it, I would say that both Praxis and the students who join us, they are kind of dead serious about making a career in data science. So and we try our best to get them a break into the data science career, right? About Praxis, I think probably the three main reasons for our success would be our capability, agility, and intent. So we recognized early in 2011 that data science was kind of a discipline that was set to explode, and leading to a crisis that would come in trained manpower in the coming years. So and we kind of we're very fortunate to have people with a unique blend of academic pedigree, considerable industry experience, who led the program design, the pedagogy, and the delivery of the program. Uh, the team also excels in keeping track of the latest development in this in data science, and incorporates changes in the curriculum and keeps it always contemporary. We are also usually ahead of the competition when it comes to adopting the leading edge technologies and techniques that make sure that our students graduate with skills of the future. Uh, when you kind of talk about the alumni, Praxites have really done well in the industry. In fact, I remember AIM had taken out a list for the 50 best data science companies to work for, and we wanted to just see how many alumni were there in these 50. And once when we did the alumni survey, we saw there were about 44 organizations out of that 50 where we have an alumni present who's working in those. So that's kind of the big number in the top 50. uh, a huge chunk of this alumni is also now based out of India, and they kind of lead data science teams and data science and analytic AI teams in organizations like Abbott in Switzerland, Walmart in Canada, Novartis in New York, Emirates Bank in Dubai, Zalando Berlin, HSBC Poland, Facebook, KPMG, Deloitte. So the alumni has kind of been moving around, and a lot of them have kind of become head of analytics, associate directors at analytics.
Correct. Very, very vast network that we can see that Praxis has as an alumni. This actually sort of brings me to the end of my set of questions. We have been flourished with a lot of questions, but before we go to the attendees' questions, I would really like to understand the last word of advice from Professor Singh and from you. Let's start from Professor Singh. Any last words of advice to the aspirants, sir?
Yeah, I think very simple advice. If you like data and if you like problem solving, uh, just join this domain. It's exciting. It's exploding. I mean, I was surprised at the way it has exploded in the last 2 years. Especially during the COVID period and beyond. So my advice is it's a lot of hard work, but the results and the rewards are outstanding. I mean, and we'll be happy to answer questions now. Yeah.
Correct. Let's get to Mr. Kaushik first before we get into the questions. Kaushik, what is your advice to the young aspirants who are watching us right now?
Okay, so see, from a campus perspective and kind of talking to organizations, we know there has been an explosion in the hiring of data science, but I believe this is just kind of the tip of iceberg in India. and and uh, uh, and India is just kind of discovering the inevitability and the mainstream analytics, and has, as I said, most organizations have just started building their teams with technologies like IoT, blockchain, AI. The gap between the job and the resource availability, it's just going to widen, right? Similar with data engineering. The recruiters will kind of now start looking at more skills. So what I would suggest is keep yourself abreast uh, with these, and kind of try and become relevant. The industry is full of a lot of excitement, and the amount of data that we are just generating every second, and deriving insights from them hence kind of becomes more essential. So I think you guys have taken the first step. You're already on AIM, which is probably one of the best blogs in India for analytics. So the first step you've taken, uh, uh, take up some courses. If you're serious, join a course, and kind of get into the data science wagon.
Correct. Okay, I think those are the last few words by Professor Singh and Kaushik on for the aspirants. Now we will critically answer the questions that have been dropped on the questions tab. Sir, how do you think? Can I read them out to you?
Yeah, please do that.
Okay. So, Professor Singh, you have spoken about the future data science and data scientists and how domain knowledge is going to be very critical. So this brings me to that first question which Mohit Sowan has asked, how to deal with domain knowledge.
Yeah, Mohit, so good question. One is that whenever, let's say you are training yourself for a data science program. So I don't know whether you're already working in data science or not, but if you're training yourself, then don't restrict your learning to, I need to learn Python and I need to learn Tableau, and why are we talking about business? I'm wasting my time. So that happens with even our students sometimes, right? So you need to realize that nobody is going to pay us for doing a technique or a tool. People are going to pay us for solving a business problem. So we need to understand, so we need to spend time on trying to understand that in a retail store, what is important. So, how do I measure whether a store is doing well? And if it's not doing well, how do I know? Are less people coming in? Or from those people, less people buying? And if people are buying, what is the average bill? And what are they buying? And what have people stopped buying that they were buying before? So you'll have to sit with people who know the domain, spend time with them, read up. There's so much, knowledge available. Read white papers on, use of analytics in retail, use of analytics in healthcare, use of analytics in, let's say, finance or whatever, and try to orient yourself to a business kind of a disposition. That I need to, I want to apply. I know this now. How do I make this business better? And then when you start working as a data scientist, you will obviously work, and your projects will be with some business. So we had one really, really smart alumnus, and he won the Rookies Award, right? The best, first year's, recruit. And I asked him, I said, what is your secret sauce? So he said, I spent a lot of time. It was for a financial services company. He said, I spent a lot of time with the branch people, understanding their business and their pain points.
Correct.
So they trusted me. So every problem they had, they came to me, and then and since I knew their business, I could solve those problems. So it was not that I was better at stats or Python than others. It was just that I was empathetic about their problems. That's how you learn. So on job you learn anyway.
Yeah, indeed, very, very important skill, that is domain knowledge. Yeah, once you have to survive for a business, you need to know what the business actually is and what they do. So yeah. So let's talk about let's take up another question. This is from Neeraj. He's asking, do you have the in-class campus-based program that is conducted in New Delhi NCR region?
No, Neeraj, we don't have that. We have one in Kolkata and one in Bangalore. Both are, lovely cities. So yeah, and we get people in both the campuses from all over India, right? And yeah, so but we don't have anything in Delhi, in CR.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. Let's come to Kolkata or Bangalore. So, yeah, Gia is asking, what is the process of admission at Praxis?
Okay, so you have to apply online, right? And then we will have a look at your application form, which will have your academic and industry background. We will shortlist the form based on that, and then we will you have to write a test. Unless you have an acceptable CAT or GMAT or GRE score, you have to write a test, which is an aptitude test, which may kind of appraises you on your quantitative and verbal skills, and then you go through it. So that test is not an eliminator. You do that test as well as you have a personal interview of about 15-20 minutes, which is conducted online on Google Meet or Zoom or whatever. So basis your CV, your score, and your personal interview, you get selected. And we have admissions in January and July, so we get applications all the year round. So
yeah. Okay. Vibhu is asking, sir, while applying for a job in data science domain, do I need to focus more on my machine learning and deep learning skills or DSA skills?
Or sorry, what skills?
Or DSA skills. I think it's data science and analytics skills.
I mean, difficult to differentiate between the two, right? I mean, yeah, machine learning and deep learning is now pretty much a part of data science. Yeah, and depending on who's recruiting and for what. So I'll just tell you quickly about Praxis. See, what we have done is we have tried to make our program broad. So we cover everything, right? We don't make you deep dive into anything because we feel that for your first job, you will get a better chance to get recruited because you will be, there'll be more companies interested in you. Once you get into an organization, your first 2 or 3 jobs will determine out of these areas, where do you really specialize moving forward. That's another thing in evolution of data scientists. I think sure, slowly they will become more and more specialized because this field is growing.
Correct. There is no actually space for generalists. It's always a space for specialists.
True.
Sort of. Yeah. Okay. Pawan is asking, with 5 years of experience in IT industry, but not related to data field, how will this program suit and how can be the placement for the 5 years experienced person or individual?
I think Kaushik will answer this.
Yes.
I missed the first part of the question.
So the person is actually in the IT industry but he's not from data science domain. So how this program actually can help and how the placement can be done for a 5 years old experienced person.
Right. So as I kind of said, see, the average experience that a person in the batch comes with is about 3.5, 4 years of experience. Most of it into IT. So you'll get a lot of people who have worked in the TCSs, Infosys, and the Accentures of the world, and then kind of do this program. So from IT, you'd probably be into testing or DBA and all of that. So the move is not very tough. There are a lot of organizations that kind of look at people who have worked in IT for X number of years and are now doing this program. Right. So most of our recruiters kind of look at this skill. So moving from IT to data science is probably one of the best things that you can do, and probably one of the easiest things.
Correct. I hope that answers the question, and I hope that gives a lot of motivation for people to actually come into this domain. Let's take one more question. This is from Moses. He's asking, I love data and I keep learning and preparing in the field of data science. I've taken courses online and doing self-learning, but getting a job in Ghana as a data scientist is difficult. I've applied a lot of jobs and had few interviews. What is the way forward if you apply for jobs and if you don't get it? What can be done to be a good fit and get a good job? Professor, if you can help him.
Yeah, I think Kaushik can.
Yeah.
Kaushik.
So country specific Ghana, I would not kind of have information on the number of companies that are doing that. But couple of things that you can start with is, one is Indeed is a very good portal if you're looking at opportunities internationally. You should look at Monster as well. So you should look at Monster Gulf, because Gulf is opening up and not too far from where you are. Right. There are a lot of hiring hackathons that happen on Kaggle now. Try and be in probably the top 20 or 30. You will have, they will give you, so that the top 30 would get a chance of an interview with X organization. So a lot of these organizations have started recruiting from hackathons. That probably would be the easiest way for you.
Correct. Okay. Okay. Bhagyesh Reddy is asking, good evening, Professor. I'm an undergraduate engineer currently in my final year. I've been told by many of my seniors and few employees of top MNCs that it is hard to get into data science domain as fresher. Is it true? If not, how can I skill myself to become a data scientist? I think still you have already mentioned, but if you would like to answer this question.
Kaushik, you want me to take that?
Anything, I mean.
Yeah, I just want to, because I'm very fond of freshers, so I think we can both be here, right? Yeah, so we have when we started, we used to get almost no freshers in the batch. But right now, we get about 15% of our students who are fresh from college. Okay, so what they do is they finish their engineering or whatever, and they come straight, to the program. Okay, so there are companies that we get who want people with experience. There are companies who say maximum experience, not more than 2 years. So that all kinds, right? So it's so again I say that if you are a fresher without a data science program behind you, then it is very difficult to get into data science. But if you get into a full-time program, which is a campus placement, process around it, then you are part of that group of students who are fresh from college versus those students who have experience. I mean, Kaushik, is that fair?
Yeah. So in fact, I'll just give a stat. So from the 92 companies that came and recruited last year, there were about 11 of them who specifically wanted 0 to at max 2 years of experience. So that's kind of a big number if you look at the percentage of students that are who are freshers in the batch, right? Uh, there have been times where probably a 3-year-old guy and a fresher has been in the same interview. The fresher got the job, right? Happens both ways, but yeah, I mean it's if you have, as Professor Chanpreet said, if you finding a job, being a fresher without a degree or anything of on data science, it would be tough to find a job uh, that ways.
So I want to add that if you want to get into data science, don't waste your time. I mean, you don't say that, okay, let me work for 2 years and then I will do. I mean, just jump into it because it's exploding. I mean, I'm just saying that. And I'm not saying come and join Praxis. You can go anywhere
Yeah.
you want to, but don't say that, let me garner some experience in something else and then I will. I mean, just go for it.
True. If anybody wants to be in data science domain, this is the time, or this is
Yes.
actually, you should just be there. Actually, totally. Aman is asking, Professor Singh, you have already answered this question, but it is specifically mentioned again, so I would really like you to iterate whatever you mentioned. Aman is asking, do we need to brush up our mathematical skills like stats, probability, etc. first, and then go for a particular programming language like R or Python?
Okay, so there is what's his name? Aman, right?
Yes, Aman.
Yeah, Aman, see, you don't have to do it sequentially. You know that first I will do stats and then I will. So in our first term, you are taught math,
Yes.
where you are taught linear algebra and differential calculus. You are also taught your first course in statistics, and you are also taught Python, all in the first term. So you learn this. So you need. It's not that I need to do this first and that later. You need to do all of this, and it's not. It's not sequential. It can be done parallelly. Okay?
Correct.
And
I
you're not
hope.
brushing up. If you come to a course like ours, we will teach you. So you don't have to brush up. We'll put into class and you will be taught.
I hope that answers someone's question. Okay, Vibhav is asking, hi, I have heard about the domain knowledge of data analytics and data science. Is it is it safe as being a mechanical engineer to take up data analytics and data science? Are there enough jobs for this domain? Please.
I am a mechanical engineer, but I would like Kaushik to answer this question.
So typically every batch will have about 5 6 mechanical engineers in Praxis, and so if you look at any of these JDs that we get, they would say we would probably want to look at a BTech, right? So being a mechanical engineer gives you uh, kind of I would say an edge in some of the organizations. So when a manufacturing or a logistics company comes and hires from Praxis, they would kind of prefer somebody who's from a mechanical or an electrical kind of a background. So people from mechanical, electrical, civil, we get all sorts of engineers, mechatronics, right? And all of them kind of get jobs. So it's kind of your the branch is agnostic here. So you put in your hard work in the first in this time, do your best. The companies will come and recruit you.
Correct. Okay, Kaushik, we have another question back, another coming from for you. Can you brief us about the job description for the BFSI sector?
Okay, so BFSI sector, there are a couple of profiles that they recruit at. One of them is risk analytics, right? There's fraud analytics. So a lot of these BFSI organizations kind of recruit for risk, fraud, for credit cards, for loans, right? So all of these are different divisions inside their analytics team, which kind of deal with let's say XYZ bank. right? So they need to know, do you give this person a loan, right? So there is a division which just handles the loan analytics. Uh, all of these BFSI companies have huge divisions that kind of look at just the credit card analytics, right? So there are a lot of inside BFSI, there are a lot of other roles as well. Fraud and risk obviously are probably one of the biggest ones that they look at, right? So yeah, so there are kind of about 6 7 roles that you can get inside of BFSI.
Yeah, I just
Correct.
need to add very quickly, you can also get roles in financial services analytics where you look at cross-selling and, upselling, which financial product to offer to which segment of customers. How do I cluster customers in different segments, and then sell or position products. So yeah, lots of things, and the rest which Kaushik covered.
True. Correct. I have another interesting question that's come from Robin. I'm an ex-police officer, would like to continue in the security industry. What path should I follow to become a data scientist in cybersecurity domain?
I think, Sivi sir, if you would want to take that,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
want
Right. So, Robin, interesting that you say that because we also run a program in cybersecurity. Okay, and we also teach a little bit of analytics in that program, and there is cyber analytics. In my opinion, is one of the hottest things happening in the world today because of this digitalization. Data and businesses and even privacy is much more vulnerable than ever before. So rather than managing that after the event, if you can use analytics to predict events or the likelihood of events, and you can take proactive measures, you can actually prevent that cyber attack, or you can prevent that particular breach. So you can either go the cyber security way and become a cyber security expert who knows analytics, or you can go the data science way and say that I already know cybersecurity, and let me learn data science, because then I can combine the two and become. But this is, I mean, with your, this is just an awesome uh, career to go for today.
Very, very interesting that people from any and every industry would like to now switch to the data science domain. It's very, very interesting to see this. Let's take one more changing domain question. This is from Marwan. He's writing, my work experience is environmental research assistance for 3 years, and I'm doing my agri tech startup now. Is it possible to get a full-time job or part-time as a data scientist remotely for any company if I don't have a bachelor degree? Yeah, that's more about it. Sir, Professor Singh, you have want to take this up, or Kaushik?
I lost the last
Question.
part. If I don't have a
Bachelor's degree.
Bachelor's degree. Sorry, bachelor.
okay, and you're working as an agri.
Yeah, his work experience is environmental research assistant for 3 years, and he's doing his agri-tech startup now. So I'm not really sure if he owns one or is working as
Yeah.
one.
So difficult actually. I
Yeah.
mean, see, there are this is just I'll just plug in this. There's another question on the similar part from Siddharth, who has asked about data science roles in climate change sustainability area. So I'll tell you what. So there are organizations that kind of hire for such roles. We get couple of these organizations that has hired. This Bharat Light and Power is something that you guys can look at. They are into renewable sources and they hire data scientists. There's an organization called Climate Control, which is just hiring couple of our alumni. So they are looking at people at 4 to 5 years of experience, and are kind of paying between 40 to 50. Right. So these are 2 3 organizations that kind of work in this space in agricultural and sustainability, and they're based out of Bangalore in India. Right. So these are some of the organizations that you can probably look at. Uh, if you're already working in agri, people like Mahindra have a huge agri division, right? So they have a agri and farm division which they hire analytics for. That is something that you can probably also look at.
I just want to add a couple of things. I think what he said was that he wants to work while he's working on the startup. He wants to work remote.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
So
let me tell you that these jobs are full-time jobs and they are highly stressful and time-taking jobs. So if you think that you will continue to work on an agri startup and work remote for this company, you have a good chance of messing both up. Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so you'll have to take a call on what you want to do now, and you probably learning this whole data science thing for your own startup may be a good idea, or even a part-time assignment could be something that you could. But full-time is going to be tough, remote, and while doing your own.
Totally, I agree. I definitely. It's a very challenging job where it requires 100% of your attention. So, in the interest of time, we'll take one more question and then we will wrap up this session. Kaushik, if you can tell us, Mohit is again asking, how many interview rounds are there for a data scientist to get placed,
Uh,
approximately?
so as I said, the first would be an aptitude test. Uh, 95% of the organizations kind of follow that. The second round could be a coding round that they give you. It is at times combined with the aptitude test, where let's say the aptitude test is for 1 hour, where you have the first half an hour as aptitude and the next half an hour as a coding test, where you'll be given a question and you would have to kind of do the code in Python or R, right? Followed by 1 or 2 rounds of technical interviews and an HR. So again, the HR at times forms part of the second technical interview. So anywhere between, let's say, 3 to 5 uh, is typically what the rounds happen.
Correct. I hope that answers the question. There are so many questions, but in the interest of time, we would not be able to take up all of them. But before wrapping up the session, Professor Singh and Kaushik, please share your closing comments for the aspirants and for all the people who are watching us today.
Kaushik, you want to go first?
So yeah, sure. So thank you all first of all for being with us for the last 1 hour. If you're really kind of serious in a career for data science, please do not kind of waste time and get yourself enrolled. Start the learning process, because the market is exploding and there are kind of jobs available and all of that. So if you've kind of made your mind that you want to go into data science and make a career out of data science analytics, uh, now is the right time to join. In case if you have any questions that you could not kind of take it up here, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will obviously kind of get back to you with the answers. So yeah, thank you and
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I totally echo Kaushik's thoughts that if you are, so I always say that I'm generally happy that I am as old as I am, because I don't want to work for another 40 years. But when I see the field of data science, I wish I were 20, because it's really exciting, because every day you're working on new problems and you actually see the solution and you actually enjoy the benefits of that solution, right? So you can see something happening. And most jobs, you don't even know why you are doing what you're doing, right? Okay, so that's one. And so get into it. You have to, you are actually signing up for a lot of hard work if you join data science, but it's very rewarding hard work. It's not boring hard work, right? I've never heard any one of my alumni saying that I'm bored working. You just don't hear that. So that is one. Second, I think I don't know, Sejuti, if the questions that have been asked, if we can compile them and we can get back to these people with a written answer or something, is that possible? Then we will do it.
Definitely, it is possible. I think we should answer all the questions because there were so many and all of them are pretty interesting questions. So in the interest of time, we couldn't take any. But two interesting key points that I picked up from this discussion is, if you love data, you should be a data scientist. I mean, that is one very right skill that one should have, love data. And the second thing is, if you want to be in a data science domain, this is the time. You should not delay a day more. Just get into some course, get yourself trained, and this is a very challenging, very evolving career. And like I mentioned in my introduction, the most coveted job title for the current industry. So the insights from you guys are brilliant. I hope this helps all the aspirants and the young professionals who have joined us today. There are a lot of questions. Please get in touch. If there are more after the session, please get in touch with Kaushik on the LinkedIn, like he said, and he'll be happy to answer all the questions. Yes, Professor Singh too, and he'll be happy to answer all the questions. But for now, we will wrap up the session. Thank you once again for doing this, participating in this webinar, and giving such amazing insights to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ajiti.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ajiti. Thanks, everybody, and have a good evening. Thank you.
You too. You too. Thank you.